Yeah, that's an interesting title for this video, and I bet a vast majority of the public has no idea what it means. Now, I'm a retired American teacher. I taught for 22 years in the public high school system, 12 years as an ELL teacher, and the last 10 as a world history, U.S. history, American government teacher. My undergraduate degree is in history, and my graduate degree is in secondary education. Now, I'm not bragging here, but I'm just giving my credentials. Okay, I'm sure the question of Free Palestine has been asked in every high school classroom over the last few months. Now, due to the political climate, I'm also sure a large portion of the public school teachers tread very lightly on how they answer that question, if at all. Now, when a question like that comes up in class, it's called a teachable moment. Now, this is the chance to educate young students with the basic facts of a certain subject. So, how would I educate my students during this teachable moment? Well, first thing you need to remember, these students have very little knowledge of that part of the world, even though they were taught about the growth of Islam a year or two before in their world history class. Not all, but a large portion will have forgotten. Now, I would start with the Ohrdruf death camps and how the collective memory of the world has failed miserably in the promise of never forget and never again. It was April 12, 1945. Generals Eisenhower, Bradley, and Patton inspected the recently liberated Ohrdruf concentration camp. Now, the battle-hardened warrior, General Old Blood and Guts Patton, upon seeing the brutality of the Nazi death camps, threw up. Patton was so disgusted at what he saw that he ordered the mayor of the town of Ohrdruf and his wife to tour the camp to see for themselves the atrocities committed by their countrymen. The next morning, the mayor and his wife were both found hanging from an apparent suicide. There was a note left nearby, and it said, "We didn't know, but we knew." That came from a Fold 3 article. General Eisenhower, realizing the extent of the barbarity of the Nazi regime and its camps, ordered every GI within a 50-mile radius of Ohrdruf, if not in actual combat, to go through the camps. He also sent in the press to see for themselves the depth of the Nazi depravity on display at Ohrdruf. Why did Eisenhower order German civilians, Allied soldiers, and the press to tour the camp? In his own words, get it all on record now. Get the films, get the witnesses, because somewhere down the road of history, some bastard will get up and say, this never happened. And Eisenhower was right. David Irving, a Hitler historian, is one of the infamous Holocaust deniers. Now, it wasn't just in Nazi Germany of the 1930s where anti-Semitism was taking hold. It happened here in the United States as well, also in Britain and France and the USSR. This video is part of the US government's Why We Fight series. It was created around 1943 during World War II. The series was shown to all US service members.
Subversive fascist organizations provoked riots and rebellions, creating scenes like these in France. Scenes like these in Belgium. And where do you think this is? Right in Madison Square Garden, USA. And this is Fritz Kuhn, leader of a German-American Bund, hiding behind the American flag, but taking his orders from Berlin and copying the methods of Berlin. That was the softening up process outside Germany.
As the beginning of the clip stated, the goal of fascism was to demoralize the enemy from within by surprise, terror, sabotage, and assassination. This is the war of the future. Now, did Hitler actually say that? Well, like a lot of famous quotes by famous and infamous people, it is debatable. What is not debatable is the fact that these tactics are being used today.
They head for the 7th floor library at the famed Cooper Union. Then they pound on the doors, threatening 11 Jewish students who have sought sanctuary, locking themselves inside. They can see protesters waving wooden sticks and anti-Semitic posters at the library windows. The protesters left without gaining entry, but some of the terrified students say they called 911 and no one came.
It's unbelievable that this could happen here. This is the second largest Jewish population after Israel. How do people not have tolerance, compassion, understanding?
Now, this is an example of the use of terror. Jewish students at Cooper Union had to barricade themselves in the library due to anti-Semitic students protesting against Israel and for a free Palestine by shouting chants, trying to force their way through a locked door to get at the Jewish students. Okay, call me old-fashioned, but that sure looks like demoralizing and terrorizing tactics to me. Now, this next clip is of a famous Hollywood actress speaking to a crowd of pro-Palestinian supporters right after October 7th.
There are a lot of people that are afraid of being Jewish at this time, and are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in this country, so often subjected to violence. It's important to listen, it's important to have facts. Try to take a breath before you answer. And if it's possible, have a conversation. You don't have to go through the entire history of that region. You can just show the babies that have been dying in incubators, the family and the love that people have for their loved ones when they're blown to pieces. Those images are enough to show you that something is drastically wrong.
Now, this was right after October 7th, 2023. What I find interesting is this famous person ignored the facts of the dead Jewish children from the October 7th attack by Hamas. Her statement of, "You don't have to know the whole history of the region to have a conversation, but get the facts of what's happening to the children in Palestine today." Okay, here's the thing. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And that's important to understand when you're teaching history. This next clip is of an Ivy League professor giving a speech to a pro-Palestinian crowd, also right after October 7th Hamas attack.
Hamas has shifted the balance of power. Hamas has punctured the illusion of invincibility. That's what they've done. You don't have to be a Hamas supporter to recognize that. Hamas has changed the terms of debate. The Israeli officials are right. Nothing will be the same again. Nothing will be the same again. Hamas has challenged the monopoly of violence. And in those first few hours, even as horrific acts will be carried out, many of which we would not learn about until later, there are many Gazans of goodwill, many Palestinians conscious, who abhor violence, as do you, as do I, who abhor the targeting of civilians, as do you, as do I, who were able to breathe. They were able to breathe.
He was exhilarated at the thought of Jewish people being murdered, kidnapped, and tortured. I just don't understand the thought process here. These people are condoning terror acts. The effect these speakers have on our young people can be seen in this clip.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Why are you here today?
Free Palestine. I stand with the Palestinians.
Palestinian people unequivocally.
I support decolonization and liberation of Palestinian people and the end of a mass genocide in the Gaza Strip.
Talking about the genocide of the kids being beheaded?
That's false. That is actually false.
When you see the kids that have been beheaded and the women that are raped, how do you feel about that?
I don't know where to start from that.
Israel is notorious for creating propaganda that sides their one-sided massacre against Palestinians.
That was already proven that didn't really happen. There was not verified.
Women did not get raped.
No. I've not seen any proof of that. If it did happen, I haven't seen it.
Like, they get attacked for no reason.
The children got attacked for no reason? The kids that were beheaded?
Beheaded? Yeah, apparently. Like, that's...
But they were Jewish kids.
Wait, Jewish kids?
The U.S. military money that goes there, $4 billion a year, should stop going to Israel to support their war crimes.
This young person has obviously been told what to say because she has no understanding of decolonization or genocide. To say that the beheading and rapes never happened is absurd. There is more than enough factual evidence to counter that young lady's statement. As you can see, Jewish students and faculty do not feel safe on their campuses because of the anti-Semitic tactics being used by the so-called social justice warriors. Now, this is a clip of employees at a coffee shop harassing a female Jewish patron.
I want to go into the restroom.
I do need you to leave. I know Israel loves taking private property and saying it's their own, but we gotta head.
You're not going to let me go into the restroom?
So I need you to leave.
We have another restroom. I want to use this one.
They're not letting you. All you're going to get is a video of it saying that Zionism is
Why are you afraid? If you agree with it, why are you afraid that I will take a picture of it? Why are you afraid? Then why are you not letting me in?
Because this is what
Yeah.
Free Palestine. Now
Free Palestine. It's always.
Please leave. Thank you.
It's always. Yeah. Great. We love.
Now, their behavior is disgusting. What they did not think about was the fact that video lives forever. The consequences for their actions and all of the actions of the Free Palestine movement will have a far-reaching effect beyond this summer of 2024. Now, the IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Force, has released verifiable footage of the Hamas October 7th attack, but due to the graphic nature of the videos, I'm not going to play them in this video. There is a link in the description below. I urge you to go look at it. Okay, so these young people have been seriously betrayed by their teachers and professors. Why do I say that? Well, it was the academics in the 1930s of Nazi Germany who distorted the facts about Judaism and betrayed their students. It is this type of intentional distortion of facts that led to the persecution of the Jews in the 1930s and the death camps during the war.
We were marching through, we were chasing the Germans. It was getting close to the end of the war, and the date was April 29th of 1945. A sergeant come up and told us all, check your gas mask. We are going into a town that they think has a gas dump that's mined. So when we proceeded to this town, it was Dachau, and part of our division, the 222nd Regiment, had troops in the camp, liberating the camp. And the time that we come to the gate of the camp, they opened the compounds, and I seen thousands of people crowding out that looked like skeletons with skin stretched on them. They were dirty, they smelled, and just one look at them, some of them half dead. Something happened that we realized that this war is all about. We know now why we were participating in this war.
These young people have been seriously betrayed by their teachers and professors. Now, why do I say that? All right, it was the academics in 1930s Nazi Germany who distorted the facts about Judaism and betrayed their students. It is this type of intentional distortion of facts that led to the persecution of the Jews in 1930s Germany and the death camps during the war. Now, this is a video of what Allied soldiers saw when they liberated these death camps. This comes from the Jewish Virtual Library, Liberation Film of Dachau. So, we have today students chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, no two-state solution, back to 48, end the occupation, end the genocide. Now this lack of knowledge the protesters are displaying is mind-boggling, but it's also dangerous. Now here's a good example. They don't even know what river they're talking about when they chant from the river to the sea.
What does from the river to the sea mean? It means that Palestine should be autonomous. What river? Okay. The expression is not anything bad. No, there's an actual river and an actual sea. Yeah, I'm aware. No, but what river, what sea? The river that literally is beside Israel and the Palestinian territories. What? It's the Jordan River to the Mediterranean.
Now, the other chants, Palestine will be free and back to 48, does not mean an independent Palestine. See, here's where the history facts come in. On May 14, 1948, the British ended their mandatory rule over the region called Mandatory Palestine. Now, the Israelis then declared the establishment of the State of Israel within the former British mandate. The very next day, the surrounding Arab armies invaded Palestine, vowing to wipe Israel and its people off the face of the earth. Okay, so going back to 1948 would not mean an independent state of Palestine. It would mean British colonial rule of the Palestinian people, also as well as the Jews, Muslims, and Christians of that area. In fact, there was never an independent state of Palestine. There could have been, though. Yep. If the Palestinians had agreed to UN Resolution 181, which was adopted November 29, 1947, it was called the Partition Plan. The details of the plan are very complicated and very detailed. Information about the plan is available online. I will put a link in the description below. Now, the Palestinian people rejected the plan, and the 1947-1948 Civil War broke out the following day. The Jewish and Arab communities of Mandatory Palestine, along with the Arab Liberation Army, fought a civil war until around mid-May 1948. The Brits were there trying to maintain peace. They were obligated to maintain order, but they only intervened when absolutely necessary. They had had enough. They just wanted to get out. So, from April 48 to around mid-May, Zionist forces went on the offensive, capturing cities and territories in Palestine that were designated to the future Jewish state, as well as Jerusalem, which was to be a type of international rule through the UN. The only time in history when there could have been an independent state of Palestine was the 1947 UN Partition Plan. Now, this was rejected outright by the Arab Liberation Armies and the Arab communities of British Mandatory Palestine. Okay, so this brings up the question, what was the British Mandate of Palestine? Alright, it was towards the end of World War I. The Ottoman Empire ceased to exist. They were on the losing side of World War I. Now, the victors, that being England and France, took control of the Ottoman Empire territories in Western Asia. Today, that is what we call the Middle East. France ran Syria and Lebanon. The British took control of Palestine and Transjordan under a League of Nations mandate, hence the term British Mandate of Palestine. Now, what you have to understand is, before the United Nations, which we're all familiar with, there was a international organization called the League of Nations. It was set up by President Wilson. I'm not going to get into what I think of him. President Wilson proposed it, and it was put into the Armistice Agreement of November 11th. Now, World War II comes along. League of Nations is useless. At the end of World War II, Franklin Roosevelt reconstitutes the League of Nations in what is called the United Nations. So that gets you all caught up. But British mandated Palestine was basically mandated to Britain to control because of the League of Nations. Now we're talking back in 1917, 18, 19, 19, 20. All right. Now before the British mandate, the Ottoman Empire controlled the area of the Middle East from 1517 to 1917. That is 400 years. Now the Ottomans gained control of that part of the Middle East when Sultan Selim conquered the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. Defeating the Mamluk Egyptians, this led to the Ottoman annexation of the entire Sultanate from Syria to Palestine, in Sham to Hejaz and Tihama in the Arabian Peninsula, and ultimately Egypt itself. So for over 430 years, there has never been an independent Palestine state. Now, if we go further back in history, there was the Crusader period, you know, when they all were fighting over the Holy Land. That's the medieval knights going into the Holy Land to recapture Jerusalem. Then before that, there was the Byzantine period, then the Roman period, the Persian period, the Aryan period, and Babylonian period. So when did the independent state of Palestine exist? Well, never. You see, scholars, now those are people who have devoted their lives to the study of a certain discipline. They believe the name Palestine is derived from the name of the people that were called Philistines. Now, they occupied part of the region in the 12th century BC. Okay, so over the centuries, Jews, Muslims, Christians, along with other religions, have all claimed special connection to the region. So the Back to 48 chant just means Palestine would be ruled by the British. So that isn't exactly free now, is it? The chant of a no two-state solution is very unnerving. What these young students are advocating is genocide of the Jewish race. That has been the avowed mission of Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the PLO, the PLA, and the United Arab Brotherhood ever since Israel became a state. They want to wipe Israel and all people of the Jewish faith off the face of the earth. Now, these student protesters are calling for a ceasefire and stop the genocide. What is the definition of genocide? Well, the UN defines genocide as a proven intent on the part of perpetrators to physically destroy a national, ethical, racial, or religious group. Cultural destruction does not suffice, nor does an intention to simply disperse a group. That definition fits what the aforementioned terrorist group's main goal is, to the destruction of Israel. On October 7th, 2023, Hamas, the ruling authority in the Gaza Strip, executed their planned attack on innocent civilians, causing the cold-blooded murder of anywhere between 1,200 to 1,400 people. The Israelis did what any sovereign nation would do under the same circumstances. They struck back. They are allowed to defend themselves, which they have the right to do under international law. Now, I am not advocating war. War is immoral. I don't want to see innocent citizens die, especially women and children. But it was the governing authority in Gaza, Hamas, that decided to place their citizens in a war zone on October 7th, 2023. If October 7th had not happened, the IDF would not be in Gaza. Gaza was not occupied by the Israelis. The citizens of Gaza were free to cross the border into Israel for work, medical treatment, to see relatives. The citizens of Gaza could travel outside of the Strip. They were not held hostage by the Israelis. The citizens of Gaza were not being forced into slave labor camps. Gaza is governed by Hamas. Now, how can that be seen as an occupation by Israel? Israel is going after Hamas. Israel is not purposefully and systematically going after the innocent citizens in Gaza. This is not a genocide of Palestinian people. This is a war against terrorist organizations. This is a war against the government, Hamas of Gaza. They're the ones that started it. Now, so, if I was still in the classroom, this would be the lesson I would teach. I would have an open discussion to questions, the facts presented, and a dialogue with my students to get a better understanding of the current situation. I would also encourage my students to engage in independent study of the subject. What I'm seeing on the news broadcast is rabid anti-Semitism disguised as support for an oppressed people, instigated by a small group of young people who do not know history and who have been betrayed by the educational system. Now, I'm not even going to get into outside agitators that are like in their 30s and 40s. Now, this quote is often attributed to Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Well, in fact, what Burke wrote was, when bad men combine, the good must associate, else they will fall, one by one, an unpitied sacrifice in a contemptible struggle. These young people, again, have been betrayed by their teachers and their professors, who will not stand up and denounce the manipulation of facts to support another genocide of the Jews. In 20 years or so, there will be another generation asking this question. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, why are you in a video supporting terrorism and the destruction of Israel? Never again means never again. Well, I'd like to thank you for watching. I'm sure I'm going to get, well, I might not, I don't get many comments anyways, but I'm sure I might pick up a couple that aren't thrilled with this video. I don't care. I'm not doing this video to virtue signal or take sides. I'm doing this video because I'm an American educator. I teach facts. I teach children to critically think. I don't fill their heads with, I don't want to say lies, but interpretation of facts to suit a particular narrative, I guess. All I know is that we seriously have a problem in our American education system today. If we have the elites in Columbia, Harvard, Stanford, protesting and wanting the destruction of a race of people, that's genocide. Well, thank you for watching.